Be by Whistle My Way Out. Oh, man. Turn that down a little bit. So everybody, I'm here with Alan Preizer, Ranger, doctor, everything, author, and we'll get into that in a minute. Before we do that, if you guys don't mind, I really want to talk to you guys just a couple of things. And really the first thing I kind of got to take us to right here is look, these are our donors. You folks have taken time to open your pocketbook and to give real money to us. In today's age, believe it or not, for what Joe and I are doing, real money matters, and we really appreciate it. We have our master rated donors: Williams, Jackman, Calderon, Hackey, Fernandez, Evans, Cobos, Wino, Ridgway, Barrow. Our senior rated donors: Newton, Diaz, Shrum, Kirkendall, Allen, Ross. Sergeant Major Ross, dude, it was so great to hang out with you this weekend. I love you. I love you, and I cannot wait till we get our interview. And then our basic donors, thank you so much. McManus was our Cool People Award winner a couple weeks ago. So, McManus, that T-shirt's heading your way. And I really, really appreciate everybody supporting what we've got going on. The next thing I wouldn't mind showing you is our Shopify page. This is where you can go and buy some merchandise. I'll show you tonight. I got my shirt. That's the one I got. I got it in, let's see, what color was it? Heather Forest Green. I think that's what I got mine in, and I'll show you how that looks. So you can go there for the month of May. All orders over $35 are 50% off. Thank you so much for your support. Buying merchandise helps us keep things going and what we're doing. And I tell you, I sound more and more commercial, I guess, as I'm doing this, but I don't know what else to do. I mean, we got to keep the doors open somehow. We looked at our bank account. Joe and I were talking about it. It's down to our zero balance again from the things we've doing. We've got the boxes that are coming from Ukraine. The coins are coming. They'll be here by the end of the month. We'll have another 100 coins to go out. Let me talk to y'all about the schedule for the rest of the week, and let me show you who we've got coming up. Let's see. Tomorrow night, we've got my buddy Mark Hamilton, paratrooper and golf caddy. I just cannot wait to see what this guy has got to say. He's got that in the background, no legs right there, a bottle opener. So you got to know that's a good kind of guy to hang out with, And then on Wednesday night, we have Sheriff's Deputy or former Sheriff's Deputy Joshua Shelton. He's a runner. He and I have had some political discussions and fun spiritual talks, and I'm looking forward to that on Wednesday night. And then, on Thursday night, I don't know of any cooler guy that you could talk to than Colonel Joe Fischetti. He was the commander of the famed Unit 55 Deuce 80A, the Fighting Deuce, and there's his command team behind him, Command Sergeant Major McGovern. I was with him this weekend, and Sergeant Major, thank you for hosting our get-together, and your son Cameron and his commissioning ceremony. He'll be a fine lieutenant in the United States Army. And just look at those guys. There's Easy Ezel back there in the background in that picture there. We're going to talk to Colonel Fischetti on Thursday night, and I'm just so excited. So let's end that, and look who we have here. We have got Doctor, Ranger, Captain, Jump Master, Alan Preizer, and hey, your book is coming, and it'll be delivered tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Muddy Boots Leadership, right? Tell me what I should be excited about.
Well, if the way I describe it is, if you would take the Apostle Paul, George Patton, and pick a philosopher, and throw them in a bag and shake it up, that's going to be the Muddy Boots leadership philosophy.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so what we're getting is Alan's take. Alan's
Right.
take on being in the mud and doing it the way
Yeah.
you saw fit, right?
It really is practical, right? Because you start thinking about, there's all kinds of terms out there, right? There's this type of leadership, this type of leadership, this type of leadership, this theory, right? But it's all theoretical, right? So this says the muddy boots leader does this, right? This is the muddy boots leader is this. It acts this way. So it gives you a set of actionable principles that you get in the muck. A wise man once said that nobody ever rises to the occasion. They default to their level of training or to their character. you
Amen to
know
that. Yeah.
so this sort of gives you sort of a blueprint, right, for where to the things to default to.
All right, right.
uh,
Well, I'm showing on the screen here a philosophy of Muddy Boots leadership. There's on Amazon.com. You can go. I was happy to see that I ordered mine. I got a 1-day delivery, and it comes tomorrow.
yeah,
I'm like, oh man,
there you
that's one
go.
of the
Thank you.
exciting. Yeah, that's one of the exciting things that I have enjoyed. Look there, who's on there. We got Bissell on here. He's saying hi. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And it's neat to meet new people and to realize, you see a name and you see a rank and you see a whatever, and you put together like a set of things that come with it. You have, wow, such an interesting story. New York, that's where you're born and raised. You I tell you, the Soldiers Creed, a Ranger Training Brigade, engineering. Wow, author, doctor, on the staff at Liberty University. Is that right? Yeah. So do me a favor and just give me a 1/100,000 view of Alan Preizer. Give me that.
Oh man, I'm a tale of two lives in terms of my career, right? I spent 11 years enlisted and just over 11 and a half years commissioned. So 50, almost 50-50 exactly. My enlisted time was all in the mud. My officer time was not. Right? So it's sort of a dichotomy. I got the way I describe it is I spent my first 11 years having fun and the second 11 paying for it.
Oh
Right?
yeah, right.
So,
Yeah, I get it.
and I took a demotion to get promoted. you know so I got a very typical OCS story, with the exception of they branched me engineer out of OCS, which I have no idea why, but it was fun, right? Because I got a light sapper platoon, ended up, an infantryman with more demo.
Right. Yeah.
So it was fun, so I got to use a lot of the same skills that I had, from my enlisted time. Ended up in the battalion, who was commanded by the guy who was the S3 of Second Ranger Battalion when I was a squad leader in Second Ranger Battalion, who
Oh
who
wow.
ended up who knew me. And
Yeah.
the brigade commander was a former battalion commander of the Second Ranger Battalion. And the division commander was the former ADC at Benning when I was an RI. So needless to say, I got my branch transfer back to the infantry pretty quick. So the stars aligned, as so to speak.
Yeah.
So and then did the rest of my time. I actually had a heavy weapons platoon still wearing castles. Took a heavy weapons infantry platoon to JRTC with castles on my
Oh
collar.
wow.
Really messed with the with the OC's heads,
Oh
right?
really?
But that was, and then got my branch transfer back and did the rest of my officer time as a as an infantry officer, and ended up commanding headquarters company in the second and 187 in Roxon. So that's where I retired.
Oh
You know,
wow. That's a storied unit.
yeah. So I made a joke out of OCS. Actually, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna have a company change of command and a retirement ceremony in the same day." And everybody said, "Yeah, you're full of it. You want to be a battalion commander." But I said, "No, I don't want to be a field grade. Never wanted to be a field grade." I said, if I'm not going to be a command sergeant major, I'm not going to be a field grade. And I had a company change of command and retirement ceremony in the same day, out of the Rock Sons, and pinned. Would have pinned. I actually pinned on major while I was on terminal leave.
Wow.
Didn't.
Wow.
So it was an interesting ride. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, okay. So you retired in 95,
No, oh five,
2005,
2005.
2005.
Yeah, 2005.
And
Yeah,
so
I was
what have you
commissioned
done
from
since?
shoot, while I was still on terminal leave, I started working for MPRI, the contracting,
Hmm.
and went right back to the sandbox and ran all the RSOI training in Kuwait, and had instructors in Kuwait and Afghanistan, and eventually in Saudi Arabia. So all over the Middle East, I was the director of training for that program for 4 years,
Oh, wow.
running all the training. We helped write all the counter IED, when it first became a thing, 2006 ish. We went and we helped write all that doctrine. Worked with JIDO, worked with AWG, all those, initially when they first stood up. So did that, and came didn't know what I was going to do, so came back and went back to school and became the world's most dangerous thing, a airborne ranger with a PhD, uh, and went back into went into higher ed in 2013, teaching leadership, strategic leadership management, that types of things in business colleges. um, and then went back to school again and went to seminary at Liberty. My master's in divinity. So sort of parlaying all that into my next project, which is a nonprofit called Lead the Way Ministries, a leadership ministry, basically teaching people the precepts of Muddy Boots leadership, which is a biblically based philosophy of leadership, so that how to just navigate this world without losing your grounding, which is what, the deal, man. All the great leaders, right, are all grounded, right? They have the ability to keep people calm, not ramp people up. So
Right. Right.
sort of that's where we are on that.
That's a neat concept that you just talked about, that I don't know that I've thought of in that way before. Is that a true leader is somebody that is a calming influence, that when it hits the fan, people are looking to that person to see how they react. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, if you think back on your career, have you ever admired a leader that lost his crap? Right? Whether they
Yeah.
were, enlisted or commissioned, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
The squad leader who, in a firefight just looks and says, "Yeah, we got this. Just listen to me and we'll get through this," right?
Right.
Or the company commander that's calmly on the radio, when bullets are flying and bombs are falling, and they're like, "Yeah, just fire." You know, it's those are the ones that you look to, right?
Right.
The
Right.
one, remember, I'm sure we've all had desk dancer sevens in their units, right? Or desk dancer six, or whatever you want to call it. The ones who are constantly on top of their desk, just losing their mind, right?
I've never heard it that way before. That makes sense, though, right? They're dancing on their desk, trying to
Yeah,
put on a show.
yeah,
Oh my God! Look at that! Look at that! Oh, my buddy Noble King says a 12 Bravo is 11 Bravo with a post hole digger.
yeah, pretty much.
PhD.
And some more demo.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So take me back, Alan, to New York. What
Yeah,
year were you born? Take me back. How many sisters and brothers and
yeah,
mom
man.
and
I was
dad? Tell me about all that.
I was born. I was actually born in Seattle, right, in 1966, um, and adopted from a family in Seattle, and I grew up in New York.
Oh wow.
I have one sister who was also, we were both adopted. So grew up on in originally in the South Bronx, and then we moved out to Long Island, and I graduated high school in Long Island and joined. I actually joined the Guard first. I was one of those split option guys, right? I went to basic training when I was 17 years old, in between my junior and senior year of high school.
Oh
So that was
wow.
fun for the drill sergeants, like you can imagine having, it was like half of this drill sergeant company were all 17-year-old kids who hadn't even graduated high school yet, right? So I'm sure the drill sergeants in the crowd can imagine that was fun, you know.
Do
So
you remember coming back from basic training and going back for your senior year of high school thinking that this high school stuff ain't nothing, man?
yeah, yeah, I remember that because I just had just enough hand to hand to learn to get my butt kicked if I tried to
Oh
use
no,
it.
no, no. Yeah, remember, hey, look, 80s hand to hand in basic
Exactly.
training was idiotic. It was, yeah, it was like,
Yeah, that was. I went to basic training in 1983. So yeah,
yeah,
it
crazy,
was
huh?
dangerous. I can't believe more people didn't get their butt kicked trying to use it.
So that's okay. So, that's something I've never really talked about with anybody
Yeah,
in my life. But let me
yeah,
tell you something. You'd think that coming out of Vietnam, we'd have had
yeah.
some
We
better
that
tactics or something.
you would
We were
think.
karate kicking people, and
Hmm.
it would look the bayonet
Yeah,
stuff. I don't know. It wasn't
yeah,
until the modern Army combatives came around
yeah.
in the mid 2000s that we
Yep.
began to really pay any attention at all.
Yeah, I was actually the 11th Regiment Assistant S3 when all that happened. When it first got integrated into, I was the first OCS. I commanded an OCS company. I was the first OCS company to introduce combatives.
Oh
So
yeah.
that was a great time.
Oh yeah, I went and got my little certifications and stuff.
Yep, exactly.
I like to tell everybody I'm level 3
Three-
certified. Watch
Yeah,
out.
yeah. People don't realize though that don't mean you're a fighter, right? That just means you can run a program.
Hey, well, you don't have to tell nobody about all that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Everybody thinks I'm Karate Kid, okay? So let's let them think that, okay?
That's,
They stay
I got my
away.
the way I look at it is I got my butt kicked by the best. You know, because I started fighting with guys in the regiment when they were first doing all this, and I got my butt kicked by the best. I've been
Oh
choked out by
yeah.
some really famous people.
Oh yeah, right? Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, tell me how was little Alan? Were you excitable? Were you calm? Did you love Tonka trucks? Did you fall off the sliding board?
I was probably excitable would probably be a good way to put it. I mean, I would fight at the drop of a hat. I was I was always I was always in something. If it wasn't for football, I probably would have been in jail. To be honest with you, back in when I was a kid, if it wasn't for my ninth grade football coach, and I talk about this in the book actually. If it wasn't for my ninth grade football coaches, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now.
Oh
They
yeah,
they
right.
really set they really because Coach Augustinello was a Korean War vet, and he was the kind of, I mean, you had formation in gym class, right? Everybody, you had formation. He taught everybody facing movements. I mean, it was straight. He was straight up Army, right? And best football. I mean, just an amazing person, as a leader. And if it wasn't for him and um, Coach Nichols, who was the other coach, yeah, I probably never would have. I mean, I didn't learn discipline until ninth grade, basically. So
Right.
freshman in high school, I started learning discipline. That's why I joined the military at 17, just because of them.
Well, what
So
what was it like in your family? Did you have brothers and sisters? Was mom and dad around? Where
yeah,
you had plenty of
that's a
food?
that's an interesting story. I had the way I describe it is a tumultuous upbringing. All right, it was we had food, we had shelter, but it was interesting. right? You learned resiliency in those kinds of environments, right? So
Right.
I became resilient at a very young age. But it it was it made me who I am. So I have another saying: just you can't if you're happy with where you are, you can't bitch about where you've been, because if it wasn't for where you've been, you wouldn't be where you are.
Amen. Hey, I
So,
totally
you
get it.
know,
Yeah. Amen.
so
Did you being adopted? How did that work? Did you ever feel like you were, I don't know, less than wanted or a burden to somebody or anything like that? Did you ever have? Because I think
is this a therapy session?
no, I don't know. Look, I'm sorry. My dad's adopted,
Yeah.
and I know I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it definitely has an impact on you. No matter whether you have a great upbringing or I mean, I'm a sort of amateur psychologist, so I'll give you the psychology of it, right? The psychology of it is it doesn't matter whether you're happy in your upbringing or not. There's always a question, right? There's always that why in the back of your head. Whether that why manifests itself into something that's, excuse me, I got to take this away from the dog. um, whether that manifests into something negative or not, that's up to you,
Right.
right? So, but it never manifested into something negative for me, right?
Amen.
I never,
Amen.
I always had thoughts, I always had feelings, I always had wonder, but never anything negative, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
My dad went
Yeah,
a long way to find out,
yeah,
who dad was and
yeah.
stuff, and those kinds of things. And I know that affected him at least in that way. And
Yeah.
anyway,
I
what?
did the I did the whole DNA thing,
Right?
you know, to try to see and figure out if there's any DNA connections out there, and I haven't gotten anywhere with it yet. So
Really?
we'll see. I mean, I'm still
Mm.
here, right? I'm still kicking, so I may find out the answer someday.
So you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about your kids.
I have a tail again. I'm your typical airborne ranger, right? I'm not on my first my first go around, right? It took me a long time to get it right. Been married this time for 28 years now, so it's going well. So we have kids together. We don't have it. Excuse me. We don't have any kids together. We have, sort of the Brady Bunch. So we got three kids and six grandkids. Oldest grandkids turned 20 this year. Twin boys turned 20, which is crazy to think about. We have
Wow.
20-year-old grandkids.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so our son Jace has been in the Air Force for 18 years. Just got accepted to law school, right? So he did like 16 years enlisted, went to OTS, right? Got commissioned. He's a captain now. Now he's getting out for 3 years to go to law school and coming back in as a JAG officer.
Oh yay, that's
So
great. That's
so
great.
yeah, it's definitely a full house.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I did a slideshow for us. Let's watch the slideshow real quick. Sound
sure.
good?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
With you, I can be sad with you. Just take my hand and fly up through the dreams where the skies are so clear. With you, I wanna stay with you. With you, I love the way that you love me today. Let's run up through the fields where the sun shines and heals. With you, I wanna stay with you. It's been so cold since you have been gone. Like I was told, you're the only one. like I was told. You're the only one I can be sad with you. Just take my hand.
Oh my gosh, isn't that awesome? Look at there what this guy says. Does a JD degree trump a PH degree in the Preizer household?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right, Bissell. Go back in your corner.
Look at these pictures here, man. As you get older, you look younger. You look the youngest in your latest picture. Oh my gosh, you look great. You look great. Wow. Thanks for hanging out with me. Tell me,
Yep.
so you go back from basic training and
Mhm.
you go uh, to high school, finish out your senior year, and then what?
Yeah, I actually went to Marist College on a football scholarship. Played football for, which is all I did in that semester. So needless to say,
Right.
needless to say, that didn't work out too
That's
well.
like my college
Uh,
experience.
so I tell people I'm a fast burner. From my first college credit to when I got my bachelor's degree was 16 years. So I played football. That was a fun experience.
Oh wow.
But that's about all I did. And then I went on active duty. Ended up in the 24th Infantry Division at Fort Stewart as a PFC. Knew right away I did not want to be there.
Oh really?
Yeah. So I had an uncle actually who was a command sergeant major at the time in he was a pack guy. He was an S1 and in shape in Brussels, and he helped me along with the battalion sergeant major, helped me get to airborne school en route to Alaska. So
Oh wow.
so I got, you know, that was one of the many times in my careers that sort of the stars aligned and I got where I needed to be. So and then ended up in Charlie Airborne, back in the old 172nd LIB days, when
Whoa,
you
those
had
are way
in
back.
the Arctic paratrooper days.
Yeah, yeah. We
Um,
had some Arctic Stingers up there during
yeah,
those times, during those
yeah.
days.
Yeah, I was a 90 gunner in Alaska back in those days. Stovepipe on snowshoes was fun. I mean, talk about building resiliency,
I
right?
can't even imagine. I
Yeah,
cannot even imagine.
yeah,
That's one of those like weapons that if you've never seen it, touched it, it's not
mm,
glamorized. It's not glamorized
mm.
anywhere. It's
No,
just too big, right?
no, it's a big old stovepipe, you know, and they always gave it to the short, squat guys, sort of like you're either going to be a machine gunner or a 90 gunner.
Yeah.
So
So how
and
did how did you get to Rangers?
from that's when I was in Charlie Airborne. I was a PFC, and that was when they started up the whole light fighter. The beginnings of the Sixth Infantry Division.
Right?
So they started the Light Fighter Academy, pre-ranger, all that stuff, and I volunteered. I was one of like three guys that volunteered to go to pre-ranger. Went to pre-ranger, went to ranger school, as a PFC, and came back, was a team leader.
Oh, you're rocking
You
it.
know,
You're
you
rocking it.
know,
Yeah.
was a team leader and squad leader for a little bit of time, and then they moved me over to be a pre-ranger instructor because there wasn't any rangers, right? So all the rangers ended up cycling over and becoming pre-ranger instructors. So I did that, and then I left there, and went to Fort Lewis. And I was at Fort Lewis. I was in the Lurch company for several years, and then went to the Ranger Battalion. Went back to the Lurch company, and then went to RTB, and that finished out my enlisted time.
Oh wow.
So
Oh
and
wow.
then
So tell me about Ranger School. I mean, was it particularly hard for you? Was it you have a great group of folks who were around
I
you?
mean, physically, Ranger School is going to be Ranger School to everybody, right? It back in the, I'm not going to the back when it was hard days, but it's, back when they only gave you one meal a day, because I went in the summer. I lost like 30 pounds. And so, in fact, my mother, and my first wife walked right by me and didn't recognize me. You know, they said I look like an Auschwitz victim. Coming. We've learned a lot since then about what Ranger School does to the body. But I went through what was then, it's called a class 10, right? Class 10 was ROTC heavy. So the vast majority of the students are ROTC cadets, and that makes it interesting, right? So all of the active duty, end up bearing the brunt for what little these ROTC kids knew.
Oh
Even
wow.
privates. So find myself as a private getting bay planning, right? Because I know just as much as this ROTC kid does, right?
All
So
right.
it was interesting. I had back before heat casualties were a big thing. I had a heat stroke in Florida. Basically walking 1 minute, next minute I knew I was on the helicopter, and then I was in the in the TMC. But back then, as long as you got an IVs and you could say I'm good, I went back out there after I didn't even use up all my all my sick time, back out there. So it's interesting, you
That's
know.
one of the things I always thought was
Hmm.
funny, right? If you're running down the road and instead of just falling out, you just like fall over, bap,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
make them call the ambulance.
yeah,
All of a sudden, you become a hero when you show back up and you're alive, right? They're like, "Ah, he's alive."
yeah,
Otherwise, you're
yeah.
just a fallout.
I was just lucky that we were crossing the creek when I fell, so I didn't bust my face open. I
Oh
fell in the
no.
water.
Well, at least maybe that cooled you down some. Maybe you
It
knew you
could
needed
be.
that.
It could be. It
Wow.
might have saved my life.
Amen. Absolutely could have.
Yeah.
Absolutely could have.
Yeah. That's
Oh
funny though.
wow. So like was there you talked
Mm,
about you spent the first time of your
mm,
enlisted
mm.
having fun and
Yeah.
then you had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Tell me what things you thought were fun. What like obviously you became an NCO during these
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
right? Tell
Yeah.
me
Well,
about
I,
stuff.
what can't be fun falling out of airplanes for a living, right? You know, uh, eh, I don't know. I learned everything that I needed to learn, right? In that first, that's what I mean by having fun. Because to me, learning is having fun. If you're not learning, you're dying, right?
Right, right.
So, for example, my first jump master in the Ranger battalion was, never jump master before. Night, engine running, onload, offload, reconfigured airplane, all of the things that typically are, door bundles aren't supposed to be there but are. I mean, if it could go wrong, it went wrong on that one jump, right? I learned everything I needed to learn about jump mastering in my first jump master. You know, so things like that. That's what I mean about having fun, right? It's just you just get to experience everything at the muddy boots level, right? At the
Amen.
action level, where
Amen.
as I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I disliked officers even more after I became one, right? Because there was so much pretense involved, you know,
Right,
and
right.
it's sort of like how I feel about higher education now. You know, people always, oh, call me doctor. Uh, just stop, right? You put your pants on just like everybody else, right? You just happen to be in a different role, right? Your role is to help somebody, right? Not to put yourself on a pedestal, right? That's sort of what I mean by
Yeah.
having fun and paying for
Hey, I totally makes sense. Was there a operation or a time or a situation that you were a part of that challenged you specifically,
it.
either physically or mentally?
Yeah, yeah, I did several of those JTF-6 operations when I was in the Lurch company. We're working on the border or working with BLM, doing things like that. And there was a time where, hang on a second. Sorry about that. There was a time where we were out and we got lost. I mean, we weren't misoriented. We were lost. I
Oh no.
mean, dead lost.
Oh no.
We went off the map sheet. that's how lost we were, because we were using USGS maps, right? Not our typical maps, right? So needless to say, me and my RTO ended up like in some bad shape, right? He was about ready to go out if we didn't figure out how to figure out where we were and get us help,
Oh
right?
wow.
So I basically carried him to the top of the highest mountain that I could find. We were in New Mexico in the Gila National Forest, so it was about 11,000 foot. So I basically carried him up there and finally got comms with the next team in the next valley, right? So because I got to high ground, all I had was a 126, right? Yeah. So we get up to the high ground, and I finally made comms, and I finally got a helicopter, finally got us all in there. And that was probably the closest I've ever come to actually like losing somebody, right? Because he was in pretty bad shape, you know.
Right.
And I'm still friends with him on Facebook, so he don't hate me, right? So it's hilarious. The plaque they gave me when I left was, they put the quote on there from me on the radio, because everybody could finally hear it when I got out. The strobe is on. The strobe is on.
Amen.
So
Right. Yeah.
and it just goes to show you, it can happen to anybody, right? It can happen to anybody, but you just got to keep your head, and you got to take care of your people, right? As best as
Yeah.
you possibly can. That's the most harrowing sort of, as an NCO kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Luckily for you, you got your lost lieutenant days over as a sergeant.
Exactly, staff sergeant, yeah.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah.
I got the
So
Golden Compass Award, yeah.
the Golden Compass Award. They gave in the air
Yeah,
defense. They gave us
yeah,
Ouzel Finch
yeah,
awards, right? I
yeah,
got one for
yeah.
being a Ouzel Finch one time.
Yeah, it happens.
What? So look, there's a crew of you that went through OCS together. We got Phil and Bissell and
I was actually their commander. They didn't go.
oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, okay,
I was
okay.
commanding that company with that crew of hooligans that
Oh,
came through. That was my last. That was my last class in command there, and that was during 9/11. So it was sort of a bonding experience with that group of prior service. There were several of them. We had Tim Morgan, who was an aviator. You know, Tim, that right there is probably one of the greatest Americans you'll ever hear about, right? Tim Morgan he was a warrant officer just like Bissell. Went to OCS, went flying, went to Task Force 160, flew for Task Force 160 forever, retired, right? Retired for 7 or 8 years. Now he's back on active duty again, flying for Task Force 160, right? So he's just an incredible American, right? But there was a really, really solid group of prior service who carried that class through a really tough time. When after 9/11.
amen, amen. Cool. Were there NCOs when you were an NCO that really took time to mentor you and help you along the way?
Yeah, yeah. Sam Spears was the one that first comes to mind. Sam he was the operations sergeant at the Light Fighter Academy up in Alaska, and I probably would have got thrown out of the army, or at least busted, if it wasn't for him. We he had he had a real calm way. He was true Ranger's Ranger, right? He was an original 175 guy, just a range. And there was a bunch of those types of guys in that up there. But anyway, he's one. And then there's Ed Christensen, who's another guy who is just an amazing cat. Uh, Bjarke, Al Bjarke, who was my first team leader in LURS. There's several, and actually mention them all in the book. They're just amazing guys who all had a sort of the same thread, and it goes back to what I was talking about, is that calmness, right? That ability to sort of keep things in perspective, right? And not lose their their collective crap during during a crisis. Ed was funny. Ed wrote my first NCOER back in the old days with the narrative, right? He wrote, his mannerisms are tough, but never affect mission accomplishment. I'll never forget that quote, right?
Tough butt.
Yeah, the tough butt. It's he just a great guy, just an amazing guy.
Oh, so like you're just tooting along one day and do. I want to be a lieutenant.
Yeah,
I mean, how did that work?
it didn't really happen that way. It was actually because I failed the first thing I ever failed in my life
Oh,
that I decided to go to OCS. Um, I failed the Halo Scuba physical after sort of blowing out of pre scuba in RTB, and figured out that I wasn't going SF, I wasn't going Delta, I wasn't doing anything cool anymore. Um, and I was like, I just said, so it was sort of a backup plan, to be honest with you.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
all of a sudden you realized, like when I was 16, I went and got my eyesight checked to get my driver's license. That's the
yeah,
first time I realized I was not going to be able to be a helicopter pilot.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just knew that's what I was
yeah,
going to do.
yeah.
Uh, wow. So you're like, if I can't go any further down the cool guy path, then I'm going to go be the O guy.
I'm gonna try to use my brain instead.
Oh yeah, I love
Yeah,
it. I love it.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah. It was I don't regret any of it, if it wasn't, if like earlier quote, but it and then my wife, she said, hey, it was actually her idea. She said, why don't you put in for OCS? I was like, you think I could be an officer? She said, sure, you can be an officer. I was like, all right, I did, and it seemed to work out.
And here I are.
Yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah.
like, did you? I mean, obviously, all your football credits didn't like transfer over. Not
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
them.
But the 12 credits I did get transferred. But the thing is, over the years, I was that guy taking classes and writing papers in the foxhole, and
I
so
got you.
by then I had an associate's degree.
I
Um,
got you.
so yeah, from cobbled together from multiple schools, over 10 years or so, 8, 9, 10 years, but
So,
had to.
what drove you to go back to college? Was it your wife?
No, I really decided that, I'm physically not the person that I wanted to be, so I have to direct my energy in some way, right? So I decided to direct it using my head, and that's sort of how it all happened.
I love it. I love it. So, well, okay. Well, let's hang up our little NCO hat. Let's put on a little officer hat. How did that go?
It was bumpy, to be honest. OCS was fun. To be honest, I had a blast at OCS. So, because, I was a ranger instructor one day and I was an OCS candidate the next day. And, I'd forgotten more about making people miserable than most of those people knew. So, it was kind of fun. And there was a bunch of us in that class. It was probably one of the more experienced classes they ever had, in terms of, cumulative years. So, bunch of SF guys, bunch of Rangers, bunch of infantry guys. So we enjoyed it. We had fun, right? So
Oh yeah.
OCS was not, the typical OCS experience, because we had a cadre full of Title 10 folks, which were basically National Guard that they put on active duty for a period of time because they had to get certified. So it was interesting. It was interesting. They tried
Yeah.
real hard. They did.
Yeah.
They tried real hard.
Y'all are
They
chilling
tried.
out.
They tried real hard.
I love it.
But my senior TAC NCO, though, the dude he was a no crap warrior, right? He was a infantry company commander in Vietnam, and then got rifted, and then came back as an NCO. So he's an E7, but he commanded an infantry company in Vietnam, right, as a
Oh
captain.
wow.
Yeah. So he was a force to be reckoned with. We didn't get over too much on him at all. But it was all right. And then after OCS, like I said, I got branched engineer, so it was a learning curve for me. I didn't know, in EOBC, at the basic course, all the Army stuff, that was easy, right? Demo, no problem. Weapons, got that, right? But here I am sitting in bridging, right? And in vertical and horizontal construction and concrete and all this stuff, and I'm like lost, right? So I actually experienced what it feels like to be a second lieutenant who doesn't know anything, right? Because I didn't know anything. So what do? I partner up with Lars, right? Lars Ostevald, great dude. He was a double engineering major out of Tulane, right? I said, dude, I'll get you through all the Army stuff. You get me through this bridging and this concrete, all that stuff. And we had a partnership, and the rest is history.
Amen.
So and then my first platoon sergeant, when I was a lieutenant in Hawaii, engineer lieutenant, was Sergeant Black. He's still working at Leonard Wood, right, as a civilian, but we got along awesome, right? We had a code, right? It was this little code. Anytime I wandered where I wasn't supposed to wander, he would say, "Hey, that's good, Sergeant Preizer." and I would be like, I'd look at him like very disgruntled, but I get it. All right. I got it. I'm good.
Yeah, totally,
So
right. You worked that out. That out. And it's so one of the interesting things, right, as an NCO is you have to take care of everything. You got to make sure it's straight. As an officer, many times you got to take care of that one NCO. Because that one NCO is going to do his best to keep you off his back. And the commander and the first sergeant, everybody, he don't want nobody on his back. And if you'll just leave him alone, he'll handle his little business for the most part, right?
I will tell you this. There is a direct correlation between how officers perceive NCOs and the experience they have with their first platoon sergeant.
Boom.
That first platoon sergeant makes or breaks an officer's career. That's what I used to tell NCOs. I said, you ruin him, you're going to pay for it later.
That is awesome right there. What you just said. You ruin him, you'll pay for it later because your branch will suffer down the road when he don't trust you when you're the first sergeant, right? Yeah.
You'll end up being his first sergeant when he's a commander, or a sergeant major when he's a battalion commander. And then you'll have nobody to blame but you.
Yeah. But you won't be that guy because you'll be long gone. You won't be have hung around that long. Oh yeah. Leadership is very personal. It doesn't have a lot to do with equipment. It has a lot to do with personalities and using your people in accordance with their personalities and capabilities and things. Yeah.
Well, leadership's distilled to its lowest common denominator. It's influence, right? And you can't influence without relationship, and you can't have relationship without attempting to know people, right? I think a lot of leaders, where they go awry is they look at leadership as position, right, instead of action, right? Because leadership is all action, not position. So, the leaders that have problems, both NCOs and officers in business, wherever, right? The ones that have problems is they're more managers than they are leaders, right? Because they don't understand that leadership is or managers manage stuff, right? Where leaders are leading people, and you can't lead people without building relationship. So.
Amen. We're talking with Alan Preizer, everybody, right here. You can go on Amazon.com and get the book right here. I've got it pulled up. Kevin McMahon says, "Rocket, Big Al."
What's up, brother?
Woo! Hector Gomez says, "Proud to have served with you." T-Mac 72 sends some hearts. Yeah. So
Those are
let's see.
those two folks that you just mentioned are amazing Americans. Kevin was one of the best NCOs I ever served with him in the Rangers. And Doc Gomez, that right there he's the bomb.
Oh, awesome. Yay. Well, thanks for watching and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We're here with Alan Preizer on Heroes Live. Tell me about becoming a jump master. Was that a big thing for you?
You know, that's another thing I lucked out, right? That's another one of those lucky things. I got to do the MTT.
Oh, look at
Yeah,
you. Look
we
at
had the
you.
we had the MTT come up to Fort Lewis. Um, and it was didn't have to go to Benning, still did, everything that you needed to do. It wasn't like at SF MTT, but it was actually the Benning Black Hats come do the MTT. In Lurch Company, we actually sent guys to the SF MTT, which it's SF, so it was interesting. It was better, but
It was better. Hey, until you had to actually know what you were doing on a mass tack.
Hey, this thingy right here doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Hey, this thing over here is upside down.
Hey, Bob, turn that around. So yeah,
isn't that bag supposed to be zipped up, or what does it matter?
Yeah. What's the T thingy me jiggy? It's not.
Oh my God.
No, jump mastering was it and the great thing about it is when I got jump master, I ended up having more jump master jumps than I did jumps total, before too long. So, by the time I got my master wings, I could have submitted my packet with just jump master jumps.
Yeah, right.
So,
oh, that's wild. Yeah.
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, you were at Ranger Training Brigade,
Mhm.
and some of those places in Lurch. So, any of those times you guys get your own birds jetted to you, and it's like Hollywood stuff up there, right? Are y'all always strap hanging with somebody?
No, we in Lurch, we did have several jump fests, right? Where but to be honest, we had a lot of training requirements that you didn't have. Like, I didn't have a lot of mass tax, except for Charlie Airborne in Alaska and Ranger Regiment and that kind of stuff. But in Lurch, you had to learn how to group in the air with a non-steerable parachute, right?
Yeah, right.
So we would do 10 jumps in a day from a helicopter, just practicing, controlling the canopy, landing close to each other, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
There was a lot of jumps.
that gets critical when you're doing some of those missions that you guys are trying to do late at night and in the
Got to do the
dark.
smoke jumper thing, because we had RT, we had part of our MTO was, doing rough terrain jumps. So, there was a lot of cool things you got to do, falling out of airplanes in a Lurch company that most paratroopers don't get to do.
So you talked about taking a platoon to JRTC as an officer. Tell me about that experience. How did you? I mean, that's like the Super Bowl of fire and maneuver, and then for you to go in there with all your little miles gear and all your little stuff, and to take how did that work out? Was it a learning experience? Was it fun? Did you kill anybody?
It was interesting. I'm again, the battalion commander knew me, so I ended up having doing that last big mission, whatever hoopla, the route clearance. I ended up basically having a company minus and leading the main effort. So I learned, I did a lot of things as a second lieutenant and a first lieutenant that you typically don't get to do. But yeah, I mean, JRTC is JRTC, right? It's everybody dies, everybody goes to the PI, and you learn what you learn and you go home, right?
So that's an interesting. So like, look, the more I found pro you get, the less you really want to spend time talking about training events, right? Yeah. It's just like, whatever. And so it's like talking to the guy with 4 combat jumps, right? And you've got like, I've got 72 jumps, and he's like, well,
I got
okay,
2.
yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of those guys, man, the double mustard stain guys. And they'll it's funny. Well, how many jumps you got? 2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is so wild. So look, I just can't go much further without asking you about this Soldier's Creed thing. You got to tell me about this Soldier's Creed. You are the primary author of the Soldier's Creed. Were you in the Pentagon and you were in a job and they come down and march into your desk and said, "You, Alan, you're the author of the Soldier's Creed. Get to writing."
Nothing that dramatic.
Well,
Nothing ever is. So I came back from OAF1. So I and I'm on the 11th Regiment staff at Benning. I thought I was going to retire then. So there's a direct, General Schumacher came out with his, there was, I can't remember, 11 task forces, right, that were, designed to answer specific questions. And the Benning task force was the soldiers task force, right? That's where the battle drills came from, the battle drills and soldier skills and all that. That was the genesis of all that. So there was this team, and then our team was was designated to figure out help with the tasks, and then the creed, right? They came out as the creed. So there was a small team. Colonel retired John Carruthers was on that, former commander of the airborne school. I think he was the commander of the airborne school at the time. I can't remember, but anyway, so there was a small team, and we couldn't figure out. Nobody could figure out like where to start. So I was like, hey, let's do this. Let's take the Ranger Creed, the NCO Creed, the SF Creed, all these creeds, Bushido, you name it. We just pick. I said, print them all, put them on a piece out there. Highlight all the words that are in common. Let's take all those words, put them in the creed, and call it done. So they were like looking at me. So I said, did that. I didn't cacked it up. General Schumacher changed one word.
No way.
One word. We briefed him. He changed one word. We said close with and kill the enemy, and it got changed to close with and destroy the enemy. And then in our primer, we said, don't reduce this to a dog tag. It has to be inculcated across the generations. Otherwise, it'll lose its impact. Right? What the first thing they do? Turn it into a dog tag. Right? Everybody's saying, everybody doing this. So that's why I said, everybody's going to hate me now that they know I'm, partially responsible for that thing. So, but that was the story, right? And then we integrated in the warrior ethos, which was work that was done, prior at Fort Jackson. So all we did was take that middle part where it said that's the warrior ethos piece, just inserted it into the middle, and then basically put all the rest of it around it. And I mean, it wasn't that complicated. Nothing that's really worth a damn ever is. When you think about it, the KISS principle, we definitely used the KISS principle. I mean, the whole writing of it, the printing of the other creeds and codes and all that took longer than writing the actual thing.
Oh, come on.
It did.
I believe it. I actually do believe it. You get so wow. So what year was this?
2004, late 2003. So because I came back from OIF1 and went right into that. So it was late 2003.
Oh, wow.
So I still have the primer somewhere around that we briefed all the generals on.
I forgot all like the warrior task and drills.
Yeah, that was all out of that task force.
Wow.
It's called Task Force Soldier was our task force.
Oh, so that was like a duty assignment for you for a while to be part of Task Force Soldier?
SD. It was SD, SD from the 11th Regiment to the infantry school headquarters.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, I'm SD.
I thought I was going to retire then. you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I do this gig in my last, and then had my retirement packet in and all that. And the one, let's see, the uh, guy from DA was down. The branch manager from DA was down talking to a bunch of captains, and I was in setting it up. And he said, what's your deal, man? I said, I'm retiring, man. He goes, do you want to command again? I was like, excuse me? He said, do you want to command again? I was like, where? And he said, well, you can go to Campbell or Drum. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, I said, yeah. I didn't ask the wife, didn't ask nothing. I was like, yeah. And I went home and said, hey, we're going to go to Fort Campbell. I'm commanding. So the next weekend I drove up and interviewed with Lennington and you know, the Rockasans. I went back, pulled my packet.
Wow. So you were a heartbeat away from retiring, and then you went back up and took that HHC command.
Yeah. So and that was a blast. I mean, that was a blast. You know,
That's got to be fun. A guy with your experience at that kind of level to go, you know, to go run an HHC. That's the kind of the perfect spot, right?
Yeah.
All the special stuff, the engineering, the special weapons, all of it.
Yeah. The funny thing is Ron Fletcher was the battalion sergeant major. Him and I went to basic training at the same time, right? So, and then the brigade sergeant major and I were squad leaders in the Rangers at the same time. So it's like, it was fun. It was fun.
That's neat.
Being like the second or third oldest guy in the battalion, you know, commanding the company. That was fun.
Wow. So what's it like, you know, what was it like retiring?
If I tell you what, it would have been really hard if I didn't do the contract thing right after retiring, because that was really a good ramp. Because I was still connected, you know, still training soldiers, still doing you know, working with some amazing, you know, retired NCOs and officers. You know, Don Purdy was on our team. You know, you're familiar with the infamous Don Purdy. You know, he was on our team. Several guys that I had served with over the years were on the team, and it was really just a high caliber group of folks. The hardest thing was being a civilian, right? And you know, being I was the deputy program manager, director of training, and the program manager was a retired colonel, former chief of staff of Third ID, and just a great guy. And we're on a range one day, and this lieutenant is schooling us on what he wants and what he's going to do and what he thinks, and we just sit there and smile, because it's like, you know, we're Mr. and Mr. now. We're not Colonel and, you know, whatever. So that took a bit of getting used to, you know, being out. I know when I first got there, I ran the mount site for, you know, as the, you know, I was in charge of all CQB, CQM in the mount site. And, you know, going out there and then having some young lieutenant telling me what he's going to do to train his team on, you know, train his platoon on clearing a room. And I'm like, all right, well, hope you don't get anybody killed. So.
Oh my gosh. That's got to be that's just got to be an interesting dilemma. I know that when I retired, it's interesting to be first sergeant marshal one day, and then the next day to be Will Marshal, and nobody calls at ease when you walk into the room. No, there's nobody holding my cup of coffee when I come into my office, you know, saying, "Here, first sergeant, we got it ready for you." You know, my driver's not calling me if I'm late for work, saying, "Hey, Top, you know, what's going on?" You know, like I've instructed him to do. And I don't know. People just don't love me like they used to. I don't know what the deal was.
I don't know. People didn't love me to begin with, so it didn't matter.
I actually differ. Take, you know, they say there's no atheist in foxholes. Take me through a little bit about your spirituality and how that comes around.
I'm actually really glad you asked that. I was born or raised Jewish. And you know had a didn't know what it was really because I was you know not you familiar with this term cultural Jewish or
Hmm.
cultural religion, right?
Right.
So it
Yep.
was more of being part of a culture, right? And in fact, I was supposed to start Hebrew school at seventh grade or something like that. That or 7 years old. That's your typical. I got a crash course to study in 6 months to learn from my bar mitzvah, right? And didn't even know what I was saying. I just learned how to read Hebrew, but didn't know what it meant, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
was the first time I learned what a finger drill is. Um, so but flash forward years and years later, I had a really cool chaplain in Hawaii, Brent Travis, still friends with him this day. He introduced me to the other side of the equation, right? In terms of the New Testament and all that. um but it didn't take of course, right? Because I was still pretty hard-headed. Flash forward again, another that was in 95. Flash forward to like 2001, that Tim Morgan, right? Again in 9/11, he said to me, he said, after 9/11, he said, "Hey, you mind if we pray?" Tim's a pastor too, by the way. Not only is he a night stalker, but he's a pastor, right? So he said, "Hey, you mind if we pray?" And I was like, "You know what? That sounds exactly right." And I didn't even think about it. I thought it was the right thing to do. And I started thinking again back on this whole journey. Again, didn't take. you know so after I got back from Iraq, was visiting friends or family in Florida, met another guy named Harvey who was raised Jewish. In fact, this is the more he's like stereotyped, right? He's a lawyer, right? And he was raised Jewish. He was a JAG officer and a colonel in the Air Force Reserves, right? He gives me this book. It's called The Prophets Still Speak, right? Takes you through line by line every prophecy in the Old Testament and points directly to its fulfillment in the person of Jesus Christ, right? I'm reading this book and I'm making notes, right? I'm like, wow, boom, the light bulb goes off. I have that experience where I knew, right, that Christ was Lord and he was my Lord and Savior, and there was no other way to the Father than through him, right? I knew it, right? So had that experience, got baptized, on Christmas Eve. This was like the week before Christmas Eve got baptized, right? So that changed my entire life, right? I had been a little rough around the edges for a lot of years, right? And it was like I had patience automatically, right? It was like I just knew that there was another way of looking at things, and that there was a bigger picture. So that, and from then on, it's been a journey towards sort of that trajectory, has been up versus flat, you know. So that's the short version of my testimony.
Amen. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing. Yeah, thanks for sharing your testimony. Like, do me a favor and tell me about the people that you pray for and that you pray for
Mm,
you. Or is
yeah.
there a group of people that you love one another and you pray for each other?
Yeah, the church that we're involved in as a matter of fact, the whole reason we moved to Alabama, right, is only because of that battalion commander that I was talking about in Hawaii, that I knew from going back to the Rangers. He lives here, and we moved here just because they're here, right? And
Amen.
we go
Amen.
to church with them. We're in the same Sunday school class with them, and it's that connection. In the book I talk about, he was the Christian role model. Of course, I didn't really know it then, right? But he was the Christian role model of a leader, that I looked up to. And then guys like Tim, right? Tim Morgan is another. In fact, I'm preaching at his church on Memorial Day weekend, So those kind of connections that are not only, military, but they're spiritual. They're friendships, right? And that's the great thing about the military, right? Is people outside the military just don't get it, right? How you can be, not talk to somebody for like Kevin McMahon. I haven't talked to Kevin for forever, right? But he'll still pop on and say, "Hey," and it's like, "Hey, man, it's like I saw you yesterday." And it's hard to really explain that to people that don't understand, that don't get it, because they just never experienced that, and I
Part of
think
the
that's
part of the military culture that is so interesting to me that you bring up is that we develop these tight bonds for such a short period of time, and we never break up with our buddies, right? It's like all of a sudden they PCS
yeah,
somewhere or something happens. So it's
yeah,
not like I hate you, you hate me, blah, 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 and we leave. No, it's like, I man, I gotta go. Give them
yeah,
that clutch hug,
yeah,
catch you on the flip side.
yeah,
But we're all men in our culture. Well, I look, I'm bad at keeping in touch with people.
yeah,
I'm bad at ringing a telephone
yeah.
because I don't. I look. I'm used to calling somebody up and say, situation, mission, execution. It's not. Hey,
Mhm.
how you doing? What's going on?
Yeah,
It's tough. This is part of my outreach to be able to do this, right?
yeah,
One of the things that I've always thought in my head is if I'm gonna catch up, let's catch up, man. Let's
yeah,
talk about real things. And
yeah,
so that's what we're doing right here
hmm,
tonight, right? We're talking
yeah,
and making memories for your kids and grandkids.
yeah.
Tell me some memory that you have that you might want to share with your grandkids. Is there something that or that there's some knowledge or an experience that you might think that you would like to pass on to somebody else?
Never put off talking to somebody, because you never know when they're going to be gone, right? There's, I can think of several buddies that aren't here anymore, that I wish I would have called them that one time, or sent them that email, or hit them up on Facebook or something like that, So it's just like, never think that tomorrow was promised, because I mean, Scripture even tells us tomorrow is not promised, right? So you should go through life, and just never give up an opportunity to tell somebody how you really feel,
Amen.
because you
Amen.
may not get a chance to do it again.
Amen.
You know,
I tell you
that's
what,
the
I
biggest.
yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. I sure enjoyed spending Mother's Day with my mom and having those abilities, be able to go hang out with my dad and do the work in the yards and help and things that we do. It's really nice to have that familial connection. So what's next for you? Okay, so doctor, jump master, ranger, author, preacher, I mean, what else? You gonna be a ditch digger or a astronaut? I want to go to the Space Force, and I want to be on a remote
Yeah.
location, like hang out on an asteroid with my Singar's radio, right?
There you go. Hey, the old saying, right? We can talk to a rover on Mars, but I can't talk to the squad on the other side of the
I
hill.
know, right?
Now, I think my sort of big picture for me now is to figure out how to give back, right? How to that lead the way leadership ministries, I think, is something that's been on my mind for a long time. I really want to focus on young leaders, and sort of, I'm the graybeard now, right? So I want to act like a graybeard.
So it's interesting how our generation is growing into that. We're like, we want to be
Yeah,
known as wise,
yeah,
right?
kicking and screaming. Now all of a sudden it's, yeah, all right. I might as well accept it.
Yeah, yeah. I got out there and ran. I called it the division run. I went out there and ran 4 miles today. I didn't quite make division
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, man, homie ain't run a bit since I retired. I ain't run a lick.
Oh my gosh. So is there something maybe that we haven't talked about that I'm missing that we're, look, I've had so much fun. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
Our goal is to tell a
Yeah.
timeless story. We're
Yeah.
going to get, we got a coin here that we made, and we got, it'll be have a serial number on it for you,
Very cool.
and a thumb drive. And on this a titanium thumb drive, dude. It is Russian tank resistant, dude. Yeah. It's got a little thing etched on it right there, little Marshall in
Very
the middle
cool.
thing.
Very cool.
And we put the video and our interview on here so that it's for your kids and grandkids one day, and they can
Very cool.
fight over the box and stuff. And we appreciate everybody's support. If you want to support us, go to formerforce.com. And we really appreciate the support. We also have the little store thing, you can go and go to. But there's the little link right there. Why don't one of the things I would love to get you to do is to call your pretend unit to attention and sign out, right? That's cool, right? Don't leaders love to hear their voice, or the soldiers love to hear their voices, leaders? And you can stay seated right there. You don't have to get up. Yeah.
That's one thing I did not expect.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, that's actually we do most of the episodes. Yeah, that's how we end most of them. Is and then you just sign out and say your piece, and then I'll play some music and we'll go out.
All right. Well, just never forget. People are most important. And with that, company, attention.
Oh, I love it. Thanks, Doctor, Ranger, Jump Master, author, preacher, pastor. All around cool dude, Alan Preizer, everybody. We've had a great time tonight. I'm happy to be happy, right? Hold on, I got this thing going.